morning that I might just talk briefly about the collaboration that has gone on between India and Australia over many years. And we have quite a lot of policy work that has been going on to support the NSDC and other partners in the skills space. So I think we'll start with a bit of an overview of our system in Australia, and then I just want to look at some of the specific collaboration that Australia and India have done together. So the first slide, the next slide please. So this is just a map of Australia, and interestingly, we were just talking earlier that Australia is a population of 23 million people, which I believe every year there are 23 million Indians born. So we are talking about a different scale in Australia to that of India, and we certainly, as Ranjan has just said, we don't have 1 million people going into the workforce each month. So we are a different ball game, you could say. So some of the things that are features of our training system, which is, we call it vocational education and training, we call it skills, we call it TVET. We have quite strong industry engagement, and I'll speak briefly about why that's so important in a moment. One of the strong features of our system, like other systems in the West, New Zealand and the UK, is that we have quite strong and nationally agreed competency-based qualifications. So that means that a student in Western Australia's qualification can be recognised in New South Wales, for example. We also have nationally agreed and consistent standards, and they're applied across the country. Which is great for a system that is probably only 20 years old, and so Australia has been able to capture some of the best learnings from around the world and put it into our system. The strong industry involvement supports the flexible delivery and the different pathways that students can go into in our TAFE system. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So in terms of industry engagement, industry directly contributes to training policies and priorities, and this is really important for a country like Australia, where industry determines where and when the skills are needed. Industry are consulted via our industry sector skills councils into the development of our standards and our occupational standards and our qualifications. They participate in governance, and at the moment there's a lot of collaboration going on around how we might change and how we might grow our system into the future. Australia also has a policy of regulation, and so our industry partners, whatever industry they're in, they often provide feedback to our regulators about where things are working and what needs to be improved. The point about industry engagement is that then enables the training delivery to actually meet the demands of those industry partners. So the industry is really quite important in Australia. The next slide, please. Thanks. So Australia's TVET system, or our vocational system, is underpinned by what you can see on the slide here, a number of different frameworks and standards that are developed. And I know the NSDC has used these in the past, like other countries have. I was in Sri Lanka last week, and Sri Lanka are also using the Australian Qualifications Framework as the basis for their skills training. So it's quite a robust and well-recognised system. We also have an authority that oversees all of the registered training organisations that exist in Australia, and they are across all states and territories, and they are the ones who provide information about the training packages, about our apprenticeships. They make sure that programs are rolled out according to the regulation and that they comply. So in Australia at the moment we have 65 different training packages which are under our national standards. There are about 17,000 units of competency, and there's about 1,600 different qualifications that a person can enter into any of our TAFEs and colleges with. So ultimately what we end up with is about 3,500 qualifications that fit under our qualifications framework that enable young people to access skills training and also leverage as a pathway into university. So our framework is so flexible that if a student has finished grade 12 and has not done very well, they can undertake a bridging course or a foundation course at a TAFE or a vocational provider, which will then provide them a pathway into university if that's where they'd like to go. So I'll have the next slide, please. Thanks. So that's a really brief overview of our training system, and we can certainly link you into more information if you're interested. But since 2011, the Australia-India Education Council, which is a bilateral council set up by our ministers, education ministers, have had a lot of engagement on skills collaboration. At the moment, we're doing an ITAC, which is an international training and assessment course here in India, and that's train the trainer model, it's master trainer, and it's an assessor course as well. And that's being done with, I think, about 5 partners across India. We've also been working with community colleges in the vocational space and looking at how can we upskill community college leaders and professionals in those spaces here in India to come back and be able to share the teaching and learning practices that are quite embedded in Australia and are quite strong. So recently, I think we've had about 10 community college leaders go out to Australia, participate in a program, and we've got some Australian vet providers coming back in a few months' time to assist with that process as well. And we have worked with NSDC and your sector skills councils on occupational standards across a number of areas, including health and IT and telecommunications. The next slide, please. Thank you. So these are some of the areas that we've collaborated with India on. We have looked at competency, we've looked at accreditation, training standards, across all of those areas that you see there. And the next slide, thanks. I guess one of the really interesting questions for India in terms of how do you skill up 500 million people, and are you skilling them up to be workforce here? Are you skilling them up for migration purposes or working overseas? So I think there's a big opportunity for Australia and India to look at how do we leverage off the collaborations that we've already had to think about how do we increase transnational skills? So how do we make sure that an Indian student is being trained to an acceptable quality and level, that they're certified, that they can go offshore and work and either return to India as a professional, or that they might want to stay overseas and live and work? So globalisation, I think, will in the future particularly affect the skills space, and where India goes with qualification recognition and certification of young people means that there needs to be a priority placed on how do you make sure that they can work in the global sense, so that when they go to Dubai perhaps and work in an oil field or wherever, that those Indian workers do have the right qualifications to be there. And obviously, I think there's benefits for everybody. There's benefits for the individual, the employer and government. But I think the shape of the conversation, I think, for us in Australia is heading towards transnational skills, and how can Australia support India on that?